first.
Let me unmute myself. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Mary. Thank you so much for joining. I see some folks on here that I know, and then some new familiar or some new faces. So I'm looking forward to connecting with all of you guys. But let me see, one word to describe my business, and I kid you not, Sydney, it's so funny that you just said this word. I literally wrote down this word, transformational.
Oh.
Okay. Transformational, because I help clients kind of transform their whole mindset around their self-image. And I try to take a deeper approach to image consulting with my clients. And I love that word transformational, just coming out of something feeling kind of brand new and feeling encouraged and confident. And those are all the things that I inspire with folks that I like to work with. So, Otisa.
Yeah, you stole my word, but that's okay.
No way, we're all transformational.
We can all be transformational. That means, you know what that means? We're in alignment.
Well, of course we are. Yes, so I would definitely pick, sorry, my name's Otisa Eads. I have an HR and operations consulting business, as well as virtual staffing services. But yes, my word would be transformational, because I think a lot of the times, and for me, it's more embracing that with my clients. A lot of the times when they're coming to me, they're like, hey, here's my business. Here's what I'd like to do, or here, I don't even know where to start with my operations. And so for me, it's more like, okay, well, that means change. And that means your end goal is to be transformed and to not look the same way that you came in when you met me. So I love that word. That's the word of the year, I guess, ladies.
I love that word too. I mean, that's literally the word I use for my business as well. And it's funny how we all have different businesses and they all shine in different ways, but we all are set to do the same thing for folks and really empower others and, you know, help people with self-discovery. And so I love that. And now I'm just curious, by the way, all of you that are out there, can you drop in the chat what one word you would use to describe your business? Because I'm curious now what everybody else would say.
Yeah, and you know, I just want to quickly add that I think too, it's a sign of the times. Yeah. You know, I think that people are really hungering for that. They're hungering for, you know, something that's transformational, something that enriches them. You know, people want to work with folks that can kind of push them, you know, to really reach their full potential. And I truly believe it's a sign of the times right now.
I totally agree with you. And we'll get into this, I feel, a little bit more, but, you know, the average consumer is getting a lot smarter in the way that they're working with businesses, and they're wanting to not just purchase items or purchase services just because it's something they need. In the long term, they're wanting to actually find a brand that speaks to them, that reflects who they are as a person. And so we definitely are entering this huge new shift. I got some folks over here, functional, unique, revolutionary. I love that. Yeah, transformational, teamwork, loving it. Yes, thank you all. So how about this? Why don't both you, Otisa and Mary, just tell us what your businesses are and what it is that you do around branding.
Ooh. Okay, I go first? Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a little different. I don't work with branding as far as creating a brand and creating a logo, but what I try to do is take a entrepreneur or business owner's brand and look at it from a culture standpoint, if they have staff, employees, or if they're looking at outsourcing, or look at what their, I guess, how they want to structure their operations in the back end. I know that sounds a little silly, like, well, how does branding even relate to that? But it does, especially if you're someone that is more hands-on, or you're someone that wants to, they want to have things more streamlined in the back end. That's going to reflect on your brand. That's going to reflect on your culture. And my goal is to make that happen in those different levels, to kind of break it down into levels, you know? So that's kind of how I work with branding in businesses.
No, that's really cool. And so I tend to work more with individuals with, I guess you could say, their personal brand. And I've had a lot of people say, well, I don't have a personal brand, but everybody has a personal brand. Your personal brand is you. So, you know, regardless if you're, you know, homemaker, career woman, entrepreneur, if you're a philanthropist, you know, whatever it is that you're about, you know, figuring out just how to help clients to make sure that those things are in alignment with their self-image. And specifically, I really started out focused in wardrobe consulting and just helping people make sure that they're bringing their best foot forward when it comes to, you know, their wardrobe, their self-image, how they're showing up for, you know, work, presentations, client meetings, you know, those sort of things. And so, but it really has transformed into something a little deeper. I've been able to bring in kind of a deeper, a more intrinsic look at your personal image, and, you know, not necessarily looking at some of the material things, but more of like what's inside, right? So how do you feel about yourself? Inspiring confidence, you know, making sure that regardless of whatever the event is, you're showing up authentic in yourself so that you can, you know, connect and so that you can be as impactful as possible. So that's really how I work with folks around branding, you know, making sure that, I don't know, what you're trying to put out there is what you're actually putting out there, right? I work with a lot of young people that are, you know, they think that people are perceiving them one way, but they're being perceived another way. So sometimes it's just, you know, taking a kind of an outside look at some of those things, and it's a lot of fun. So
I really appreciate that. And I think something that I really wanted to touch on during this conversation, because as everyone can tell, I don't have someone who necessarily focuses on what we traditionally think of branding, you know, logo, website, right? There are so many other pieces. The reason I thought it'd be great to have Otisa and Mary on is because there are so many other pieces that go into branding. You know, even looking at your languaging, the way you have your copy written and you speak to people online, what is authentic to you? What has your voice? I know there are some people, you know, in their signature, instead of saying, "Dear sir," "Madam," you know, maybe their brands to say, "Hey, what's up?" And that's not necessarily grammatically correct or quote unquote professional, but that's them, you know. Or at the end, like me, my signature when I sign off, it says "Adventure awaits," and you wouldn't believe how many people are like, "That's so freaking awesome!" Like that's the way you say goodbye to people. Like, I want to work with you. Like, I'm excited for whatever adventure we're gonna go on. And so that kind of leads me into this idea of, you know, I don't know how many of you here have ever had someone or expected someone that you've worked with or that is wanting to work with you do a background check on that person. Has anybody ever experienced that? You're going to work with someone, and I don't mean like an employer, I mean another partner. Have you ever had a background check done on someone? You can raise your hand and be honest, yes or no. Use a little check. Only in the corporate world, someone said. Okay. Have you ever had someone do a background check on you? In just even in the entrepreneurial world? No? Yeah. So that might sound odd, but you'd be surprised. Your brand that you're presenting, even on social media, in the way you carry yourself, in person, the way you show up to meetings is really, really important. I literally just won a client out of Florida, which is a completely different vibe than Colorado, right? And the reason I won her is she was like, "Oh, I did my background on you. I went to every single social media site I could find that you're on and looked into who you are and what you're saying and what's showing up. I wanted to see all of your content." So that's why it's really important for when you're showing up in business that your brand aligns also with who you are personally as well, because people are looking at you. They might not be saying anything. They might just be lurkers. That's what I call them. They're like the creeper from Scooby-Doo, just following you around, but they're watching. Have you, Otisa and Mary, what do you think really helps to strengthen people's brands? Otisa, from a culture perspective in businesses, what's something you think that helps to strengthen a brand?
Ooh, I hopefully someone has done the work in figuring out what words describe themselves and how they want to show up in their culture. So for instance, like I'll use myself. When people look at my website and they reach out to me, they always say, "Oh my God, you seem so friendly and approachable, and you just seem like an exciting person to work with." Well, that happens to translate personally as well. And I did that on purpose with what I put out in the world. I want someone to say, "Oh my gosh, she seems like a chick I could get along with." And that's because that's who I am. So I feel like looking at yourself and saying, where do I shine? Where do I like light up? And how do I translate that into my culture? And how do I translate that to potential clients or partnerships, right? Because that, like, what I wanted to touch on is the word alignment. And in order for things to be aligned, you have to kind of be careful of what you're putting out there, right? Because if you're putting out something that doesn't match you and what you care about, then you're going to attract the opposite in partnerships and clients. So I think just doing some work and figuring out verbiage, and I know there's different ways to go about figuring that out. But doing that work and really figuring out what words, like for me, it's transformation, embracing change, impact, all these different words, that describes who I am as a person, but that also is what I want to translate with my business.
And can you explain, just so in case someone doesn't know on the call, like, what does culture mean? Because we get it from the stance of like what my culture is personally, right? But what does that mean within a business?
Okay, so what's cool is I just looked at culture handbooks today for a client. So I'm like, this is perfect timing. So culture can be defined different ways. And I'm a definition person, so I kind of want to look it up, but I'm going to be talking. So feel free to look up the word culture in your spare time. But really what it is you're taking your mission, your values, those things that kind of make up who you are. And you're saying, this is the environment I'm going to offer to my clients, to my contractors, to my staff, whether you have employees or not. This is the environment that I want to create. For me, like I tell my contractors, there is no silly question. Feel free to ask me anything you want. And they're always like, is that real? Is that true? I'm like, yeah, you can text me any question you want. I may not get back to you, but I will, quick, but I will be sure to answer your question when I can get to it. I don't believe in dumb questions. Ask me whatever you want. I'd rather you ask me than you assume something. And that's part of my work culture that I want to provide with my team. So that's kind of how I defined it. Again, look up the definition. I'm all about definitions. But that's how you would translate that to your business.
Awesome. Thank you. And what about you, Mary? What is something that you notice that makes someone really successful when they're looking at their physical, like, personal image?
Yeah, I think what Otisa touched on about authenticity, just being true to who you are. That's one thing that I just always come back to that with clients. Just be authentic to you, and I love encouraging people, if there's a quirk or if there's something that you're working on that might even be a challenge for you, go ahead and just pull that out, and try to find a way to make that, a part of who you are, because, it allows people to connect with you when you're just being authentic, being yourself. It translates into your brand. Another thing that's really great that it's on the tip of my tongue and I don't want to lose it here is over-promising, not over-promising, but when you show up, over-delivering, right? Just always showing up and I think beating people's expectations. I think that really translates into your brand very well, because then people really just start to see like, okay, it's not just talk, right? This is actually who this person is. When you're showing up and you're bringing a little bit more than what they expected or even what you promised. And so I think those are two big things because they play into your reputation and your credibility. And Sydney, you were mentioning that, you know, when people do a background check on you or, you know, they look you up across all your social media and, you know, they kind of see your history. They might even reach out to somebody that you've worked with before to find out, you know, how was it working with this person? You know, who is this person? And so I think when you just get into the habit of showing up authentically, showing up to where, you know, you can give a little bit more than maybe what people are expecting or what you've originally promised, I think that you will always find that you're coming out on top, and, you know, people will automatically start to associate those things with you, with your brand, with who you are, with your work. It all kind of falls in alignment. There's that word again. Hey, George.
So I'm curious now too, because I know when I'm working with business clients and, you know, there are some things that I've noticed that I would consider like quote unquote mistakes that happen with branding. For instance, right? Colorado is Colorado casual. So
Yeah.
I can show up in a tank top and be on a phone and on a Zoom call, no
Right.
problem. But I have noticed, especially with so many people, you know, having more access to Zoom, people wanting to meet this way virtually. When I am meeting with a client on the East Coast or the West Coast, I make sure to dress a little bit different because
Yeah.
I understand their expectations are different. Or I even have clients who are on a pendulum, right? Where if they're maybe they're a little depressed and they don't have a great routine and they're stuck at home and they don't like working from home, they're not getting out of bed. I've had people sometimes get on calls with me from their bed and I'm like, I didn't want to see all that. Like,
what's funny is my husband was doing that earlier in the year. Like he just got so burnt, you know, from being inside with COVID. And I was telling him, because he manages a team of about 25 developers for Sling, for Dish.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, that it's unacceptable. Like you can't, you know, because he would just turn his camera off and think like, okay, I can just have my camera off for the next 2 months. And I'm like, no, people want to see you. They want to connect with you. Like,
yeah. Well, and that's the hard part, right? Because what would you expect out of your teammates, right? Like, what are your expectations for the folks that you're working with or for your teammates or whatnot? Would you want them to have their cameras off the whole time, you know, and not be engaged? Because that is a sign of non-engagement, regardless of if you are or are not paying attention. It is. Especially in a meeting setting. So that's one big thing. And I'm happy you added that, a real life personal story. I think another mistake that I've seen people do is not just communicate with those around them. Even if it's children, you know, taking time to really sit down and explain to them, hey, I'm going to be working from home. And it's not 100% perfect, right? Like it's not possible. But when I have this sign on my door, get a sign for your door like you would in a recording studio. When I have this red paper up, that means I'm busy. When the red paper's down, come on in, talk to me as much as you want. I had another person that I was on a networking call with about this size, and her husband like walked through half naked and like just I see a couple of people's faces. Yeah, he was half naked. I was like, please tell me he's getting dressed and not getting naked, even more naked. But that just goes to show, like, you have to communicate, and the folks you live with now at home are your coworkers now, even though they're not your work coworkers. They're your coworkers now. So you got to make sure that they're representing you too well. That even goes down to my dogs. When I'm on a Zoom doing a presentation like this, I'm sorry, you're in the kennel if no one else is home. I have a blockade on my door because they'll try to bust in. So just making sure that, you know, if you can, and you have some control over that kind of stuff, thinking about that a little bit from working from home. But how about you, Mary and Otisa? What are some common mistakes that you see around branding for businesses?
Yeah, I think, you know, just again, I wrote down, you know, just not being authentic, but also, you know, not spending enough time really just looking at your reputation and your credibility and, you know, spending some time investing in your personal growth, right? Because it's not just for you, it enriches everyone around you. And Sydney, I love what you just said about, you know, these people are your coworkers now. Like we you know, we kind of have to think of it as, you know, it's going to affect everybody. It's not just, you know, you. And I think that the biggest mistake people probably are making is really just focusing too much on, you know, the material things like you were mentioning, the, you know, color schemes and, you know, fonts and my website and, you know, all of these things. But when you show up, how are you showing up? You know, are you giving your clients 100% of your engagement, your attention? You know, are you coming prepared to these meetings? Do you do research ahead of time? You know, how are you presenting yourself to clients? The Zoom call, I think that's a great example because it's like, you know, yes, we're all at home and everything, but sometimes the things that are going on in the background, it can be a distraction for our clients or whoever we're meeting with. So, you know, sometimes just being a little more aware of like, okay, what does this look like for them? Is it too distracting for them? And then just showing up authentic, confident, you know, in yourself, and over deliver. Like, I just love it when people show me something that I wasn't expecting. Like, I just really love that. And that really makes me say like, I want to do business with you. You know, if I can't do business right now, I'm thinking of how can I refer somebody to them? Or, you know, later down the road, how can we work together? Because or just how can I incorporate them in my social circle now? You know, because when you get something more than what you were expecting, it's like you really want to be a part of that, you know. You almost kind of want to glean a little bit of it too, like, ooh, can I get some of that? You know, I love when I meet somebody and I'm like, oh, their energy, I love your energy. Can I get some of it? You know, you energize me. And so I think that that's probably something that brands are missing, is just that whole intrinsic, the energy. How does it feel to work with me?
Yeah.
So if you can kind of pinpoint that, and if you can communicate that to people and show that to people, bam, I really think that you will find that you will be successful. Not that you're not already successful, but I think you'll be able to go to the next level of wherever you're trying to, you know, take yourself.
And I think to kind of summarize what you're saying is, I could call it a lot of times planting seeds, right? Like,
Yeah.
this person, the other idea of brand strategy too is like, don't just look at a person as just a dollar sign right now, but
Right.
also like, how down the road can you foster a relationship that actually could blossom into something amazing? Like, you might not be able to do a partnership with this person right now,
Yeah.
but they know like, whoa, I know this awesome person that does this, and I'm going to give you their info. You wouldn't believe how many people I met someone in Disney World. Not Disney World right before COVID. I mean, Disney was shutting down. We were crazy to be there, but we were there. So we enjoyed our time while we had it. I offered a man from Houston my cell phone charger because his phone was dead. He had all his kids with him. Disney now requires you to have an app. People's phones die. I was like, here, I have a charger while you guys are eating lunch and we're eating lunch. You can use it. He was like, that was the nicest thing I've ever had a stranger do. Ever. He's like, where are you from? He was just like, he couldn't believe it. Like, and all I did was offer him the cell phone charger. Do you know, he messaged me last week on Friday and said, my wife and I want to plan our anniversary trip for next year. Will you be our travel agent? Like just doing simple things like that and showing up as yourself and
Right.
being kind to people. So planting seeds, you never know. I wasn't expecting anything out of it, but
Yeah.
he kept my card and he called me. And that was
Right.
later during a
And
pandemic.
I love though that you realize that your brand, like you are your brand wherever you go. It never stops. Grocery store, vacation, you know. So that's something too I think we have to be mindful of, especially as entrepreneurs, you know, people that run your own businesses. It never really turns off.
Not at
Yeah.
all. Not at all. How about you, Otisa? What are some things you would suggest?
I was going to say a couple of things in regards to mistakes that I see would be consistency, like we were just saying, like showing up on a consistent basis as who you are and who your business is. I think sometimes it can get lost, and I'm not just saying like social media wise. I think when I say that, people tend to think social media, but I mean like how you are at a networking event, how you are on a panel, how you are in, you know what I'm saying, on a podcast interview. Like, you know, I should be able to see you shine in every single form that I get to see you, however that looks like, and it remain consistent. And I love the planting of the seeds, because that's literally like, I think that's like, if I could just have a billboard behind me, like that would be what I preach, is because every interaction, like I had a call today with someone, didn't expect anything to happen, didn't expect a sale, didn't expect anything. And I got a friend, I got someone I can collaborate with, and possibly a partnership. And we happened to enjoy a lot of the same things and shows, and we had a great time talking. And I left feeling so great, you know? I feel like sometimes you go into, you know, connection calls, and you're like, oh, how's this gonna go? And I try to always go in with, you know what? I just hope that we have a good conversation. And I also want to foster a relationship. So anytime I'm going somewhere, I'm doing something, I have this like, what kind of relationships can I build from this? Or, you know, like that's kind of how I look at it, is from a relationship standpoint, because I tell everyone this. In my life, I want people that's part of my tribe, part of my, you know, business, part of my, you know, whatever. Either you're part of this or you're not part of this. Either you're on board or you're off, and that's okay. But that's who I am. And I think that that's how I go into things. And that's what I've noticed, that some people don't have that relationship standpoint when they're looking at their brand. They just want to show up and sell. And that's great. I'm not saying not to do that. If that's what works and that's what's making you revenue, awesome. But getting to just know someone, you know, like I think sometimes I'll respond to people, and I'll ask them questions about their family and what movies they like. And then I remember it, and then I say, hey, did you ever finish that movie you were telling me about? You know, and like, oh my God, I did. It was great. You know, and now we have a connection. It's not just, oh, I want you to do this thing for me, or I want to buy this thing from you. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. And I think something too that all three of us have pointed to is the shift of everything we're describing is what millennials want. Literally, millennials, people my age, folks who are becoming, you know, soon they'll be the leading consumers and the lead in the workforce. We want to feel seen, we want to feel heard, and we will take a pay cut sometimes actually to feel like the business that we're a part of is making a difference in the world, or we'll pay more to work with a business that we connect with and feels like it's making a difference. And so as business is changing, which it is, that's something to keep in mind. This definitely, I don't know if you all expected like business as usual, here's the top 5 tips, you know, for creating a brand. This is a lot different than that tonight. It's very different. This is more relationship based, which is how I run my business personally. So I think I want to open it up to everybody. If anybody has questions, has comments, I know some folks like Juliana had said something really great about her nonprofits that she works with, and I would love to have her hop in and maybe share that with the group. But before we get off, what's one piece of advice that you all would give to someone who is maybe just getting started or just thinking about branding in this more relationship based way?
Oh, Mary, you want to go or me go? Oh, okay.
Go first. You're off mute.
Well, if I could give one advice, I would honestly say start with just writing words that describe who you are and seeing how that is showing up in your business. Look at your website. Are these words showing up there? Are these words showing up, when you show up to a call, are you showing that in your presence? Or when you do follow-up emails, how are you engaging with people, and seeing kind of how that overlaps. And if there's a disconnect, now you know where you need to make changes. And I was going to say one other thing is it's okay to change. It's completely okay to change, whether it's saying, I really want to be about impact today. And then the next day you're like, what? I really want to focus on transformation. That's my jam. Whatever that is, focus on that. And that'll just slowly bloom into other amazing ways that you are showing up in your business. That's my advice.
Yeah, and mine is going to kind of piggyback off of yours, Otisa. Just spend some time being authentic with yourself. I think that with social media and, a lot of times we feel pressured. I have to look a certain way, or my website has to look this way, or I have to post this way, or, whatever that is for you. But really, I think it's spending some time to reflect. And, like Otisa said, write down some words that really describe you and just be authentic to that. And, I love personal growth. Like you were saying, it's okay to change. I like to actually call it growth instead of change. I know some people don't like that word change, but, it's okay to grow, and it will translate into your brand. I promise you, because people will see the actions. They'll see how you operate, and they will start to associate that with your brand, who you are, your business, how you do your work. And things will come.
Thank you so much, both of you. And to kind of follow up on that, I'm going to recommend a book to everybody. It's a really short read. You might have read it before. I suggest going back and reading it. It's called Who Moved My Cheese? No kidding. I don't know. Has anybody read that before? Okay. So us three, which is crazy. I didn't even know that you all had read it before too. Yeah. Who Moved My Cheese? It's an amazing book. It literally takes a day to read. But it's a parable. And I think that it's so important to think about that in terms of just with everything going on with people having to pivot and business changing the way it is. If you're ever struggling with something like that, I really would say, to look at that through the lens of your business, and then to also look at it through the lens of your personal life. Also, too, Kite Dart sponsors this event. Kite Dart's a coaching and consulting firm that works with people who are looking at using business as a tool for change. And they offer several free workshops. There's a paid workshop where you actually, like Otisa had said, and like Mary had said, you get to work with someone, a coach, and go through what is it that makes your business tick, like what makes you tick, what makes your business tick, what are those words. That's actually some of the work that I've done. I know, Otisa, you've done some of the work too as well. So if you ever get stuck, they're amazing because that's what they do. And Karen is part of Kite Dart, and so I'm just going to volunteer her. If you have any questions too, you can talk to her. She's awesome to talk to, though. We talk to each other like once a week. So
Sydney, can I add one thing?
Yeah.
I say Align Business Strategy course is like the best way to start to really dive in deep and knowing these, source commitments is the word we use, but those words that you're looking for to see, to describe yourself and your business, because they go hand in hand. It's a great course. Do it.
Yeah, I believe I'm my business and my business is me. As a coach, especially when I'm talking to people about balance and life fulfillment, a lot of times people think I have to separate my work-life balance. And I'm like, that's not what it means. They're not necessarily two separate things. That's like saying I have to separate my family, my children from my husband or my wife or my partner. Like, even though they're two different categories, they're all family. And so it's about finding a balance, right? To give them all attention. And so it's the same thing with business, is that I am my business. And what I've noticed is my conversations and the way that I'm talking with people has changed. It has developed, it has grown. And, you know, some of my friendships, even, I love them, but we're just not talking and having the same deep, meaningful conversations anymore. And that's okay. It gets scary at first. You're like, whoa, what happened to me and my best friend? We used to could talk about anything. And then I realized that now I'm doing a higher purpose through my business, and they're not on that same track. And so it's okay. But that's something else to realize, is that relationships do change once you start to use your business as a tool to make a difference as well. So with that being said, thank you both. This was awesome. I want to leave some time for just questions, and folks were adding some great information in the chat. And so does anybody have any questions for anyone on our panel at all? You can unmute yourself. You don't have to type. And while we wait, maybe a question will pop up. Juliana, you had made a comment about your clients and how you help kind of coach them. Can you explain like what you do and what the comment you left in the chat was about?
Yeah. So my comment was treat every donor like a major donor. So I work with nonprofits, and in fact, I had this conversation with a client today. I was asking about stewardship and how they're nurturing the relationships with their donors. And they said, well, we write to everyone who gives us over this amount, and they don't acknowledge the rest. And what I've learned is that we don't know the capacity of somebody who gives, especially with a first-time donation, because they're testing it out. They want to get to know, like, and trust us and really see, are we in alignment? So important. And so when they go in with that mindset, they leave literally thousands of dollars on the table for sure. So in my business, I try and approach every relationship with that same openness of possibility, because I don't know, making assumptions is just not wise. That is never a good idea, almost in any area of life, I think. So I try and I've had a couple of calls this week with potential clients, and if we work together, fabulous, that's great. If we are in alignment and we both agree that's where we want to go. But if we don't, I hope they leave the call, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour, with value that they can implement in their business right away. So that's always my objective, is to provide value and share the expertise that I have, whether we work together or not. And that just pays off, I think. And it does build that trust that I think is so important and unusual in traditional business models.
I
learned that from Kite Dart.
Yeah, that's right. You and I both, huh?
Yes, we did.
I was going to say that's something too that I can really say that I have experienced firsthand. I actually had someone who was in donor relations for this organization that was pulling in like $250,000 a year. And she was like, we get donors sometimes that only donate $1,000. She's like, these people are loaded, but they're just testing out the waters. And so it is our job to make sure that we're, you know, treating them just like everybody else, because you never know. And so it's so funny that you said that again. Like, that had been said to me a couple of years ago. And when you said that, I was like, whoa, deja vu. So I thank you for that advice and for sharing that with the group.
You're very welcome. Thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments to add about adding a personal brand, or what does that mean? What does that look like? No? I will. Oh.
I'll jump in, Sydney. I'll, if you don't mind.
No, go for it.
Yeah. So this kind of goes back to something you said, Sydney, and something you said, Mary. And I've had a conversation with like a personal stylist before who was sort of like that idea of like, you need to be your brand all the way, all the time, like in the grocery store, at the gym, at the, you know, like everywhere you go. And part of that conversation was around like, you know, being really professional and not showing up the way you would on your couch. I don't know how to put it. You know what I mean? But
like the dress, you need to be dressed to the nines.
Yeah, your dress, hair, makeup, and I just feel like, sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going. I want you to finish your thought.
Like this idea, like I'm this person and I can get dressed up and put on makeup and have the dress and the shoes or the whatever, but I also like my flip-flops and my t-shirts. Right. And, you know, and that it's like, a brand is not so, to me, flat that it only looks one way. I guess I'm just curious, you know, what you'd say about that, Mary. So
yeah, no, and I love that you bring that up, because for me, that's not what I tell my clients at all. I'm not expecting you to go to the grocery store decked out, you know, in a full 3-piece suit or whatever. I think it's more of, you know, well, how do you carry yourself, right? So if you're in the grocery store cussing somebody out because they took the last macaroni and cheese, which that actually, I saw somebody doing that in the beginning of COVID because, you know, everything was sold out. And I mean, people were, you know, fighting over stuff, cussing people out. And it's like, I hope you realize, you know, your client could walk in at any time, or a cousin of your client, or, you know, somebody could see you. So I don't think I'm necessarily talking about like the flip-flops and, you know, that sort of thing. I think I'm more of touching on how do you carry yourself when you're in public? You know, how do you treat people? Kind of like Juliana was saying, you know, just because they look like a bum on the street doesn't mean that they don't have something, you know, or that they're not valuable, that they can't, you know, enrich people, or that they're not somebody that you can connect with. So, Karen, I think I more focus on what's inside than what's outside, because what's inside actually ends up affecting what's on the outside and how people see you. So yeah, go wear your flip-flops and your jeans. Girl,
I do anyway, but it's, you know, I tried to listen to her professional opinion, you know, and then I was like, but I want my jeans and my flip-flops. So,
well, and I also think too that I know the individual you spoke with, and the area of the country they come from is a very different environment than where we are. They're from, you know, LA, which is a lot different. Like you don't go out the door there as a professional without makeup on. I wouldn't survive. That's all I'm gonna say. So, you know, you go out in heels and stuff, and some people love that. That's fine. Like if that's what you love to do, but I'm the same way, Karen. I'm like leggings, flip-flops. If I don't have to wear socks, I'm not doing it. You know, that kind of thing, like t-shirt, no makeup on, whatever. But I have had people who I have actually, like, I've conducted business where people and I just get into a conversation and I'm being genuine and friendly. And they're like, whoa, I would love more information. Let's talk later. You know, that kind of thing. So I think definitely it's a perspective too. When you're talking to different individuals, it's just where it's their perspective. What's their experience? What lens are they coming from? And I know that coming from a very,
Julia, you go.
Yeah.
I was just going to refer to something you said, actually, which is it's the culture. We get to create the culture of our organization. And part of that culture is how we show up. And I think COVID has contributed to potentially a little more casual culture for a lot of us. I know I had that thought yesterday, exactly what Sydney said. I had a tank top on yesterday and I had a Zoom call with someone on the East Coast in Washington, D.C., and I was shocked by what she wore because I don't see that here with my clients. I mean, she was really dressed up and I thought, okay, note to self, next time I need to really step it up. And I can do that. That's okay because I care about connecting with my clients. But I think that how we create our culture can help us define how do we, you know, what are the spectrum of kind of that full on makeup and, hair in a ponytail?
And I tell my clients too sometimes, especially if they're used to seeing me in a t-shirt or a tank or whatever, hey, this is me in my office. This is how I am. But if I'm doing an event for you or I'm recording something for you, I clearly define that for them, and I tell them this is how you can expect for me to show up when I'm presenting in public on your behalf. So I think also too, if you're in that realm of work, especially if you're doing anything around like food or, events or anything like that, there is a huge difference as well. And I've had to tell some people that like, hey, you might not see me every time like this, but when I'm doing something for you and I'm getting paid to do it, it definitely can be and will be different. So.
Yeah, I have two things to add to that because I could talk. Mary knows that I love clothes and fashion, so she knows that I could talk about this all day. But there's two perspectives you can look at it. And for me, what I've been trying to do during this COVID situation and Zoom is I pretend I'm in an office. I wake up, and here's the thing: it's top up, people. Bottom down. It's shorts and moccasins. But top up. I used to always keep a cardigan, or if it was winter, a blazer, and on the back of my chair. So if I'm meeting someone from the East Coast or I'm meeting someone from, LA or New York, I got a blazer and boom, now I look like I'm put together, or sometimes I keep, at my office when I did HR, I would keep some jewelry and I would keep a blazer or a cardigan. So I can just look like I'm all put together and special for whoever I'm going to meet with. And I do the same thing now virtually. And another thing is, I feel like it's also a mindset thing. And Mary, I'm curious to what you think about this, but if you get up and get ready as if you were going out and you're going on a Zoom call, you're showing up in a different way than just, all right, got 30 minutes until this call. I'm just going to slap.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. You have more energy. You show up more engaged. You literally show up different, And so I totally get it. Like, and yes, a lot of us do live in Colorado. We're in a little bit more of a casual environment, but sometimes I think if you just do it for yourself, to just see, what are the results? Like what happens to me inside? Am I more confident? Am I, more able to speak and say what it is I want to say without, being trepidatious or, tiptoeing around what it is I'm trying to communicate? Like sometimes it really will give you just that slight edge that you need to be able to show up fully, put on your expert hat. Because I know sometimes I get into my head about, oh my gosh, am I an expert or am I an expert? And so sometimes when you show up really looking the part, it's like, yeah, and then you just feel good. And, it feels great to, get compliments from people. Oh, you look great. Your blazer looks great. And it's like, oh, thank you. But then too, I love what Sydney was saying about, and actually, Juliana, you said this too, about kind of dressing to your client. So I come from the world of private banking and wealth management. And so, for the most part, we would always have to be super dressy, suits and those sort of things. But occasionally you would get a client, I'll just give you an example, like an oil and gas client out in the middle of nowhere. They show up in their cowboy hat, cowboy boots, their boots have mud and, whatever else on them. And sometimes you don't want to outdress your client. You don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. So I love what Juliana said about just kind of gauging like, okay, who is this person that I'm meeting with? Are they super, super casual? Am I going to throw them off by showing up in a 3-piece suit? Like, is that going to like make it so that the deal is not happening? Or, do I need to show up in the 3-piece suit because this person, they're looking for that added credibility, to just make them feel comfortable. I've actually had clients tell me like, well, you don't look like you can manage my money. And so, sometimes you are having to battle, okay, well, what should I look like? And that's why I always go back to the authenticity thing,
right?
Yeah.
Because if your brand is casual, cute, you know, spiffy is a word I like to use to describe myself, then my clients are kosher with how I show up. Like,
right.
You know, like I would say almost every client I've talked to since COVID, no problems. They always tell me they like my smile. That's usually what I get. Oh, I just love your smile. I'm like, okay, I'll keep doing that on calls. But my clients aren't, for the most part, I doubt I'm going to attract 3-piece suit clients.
Yeah.
That's for me personally. But if that's who you want to attract, go out there and, you know, dress that part.
Right. And
And
realize that you'll probably have to, you know, dress that part. It kind of depends on who is your client and who are you kind of having to cater to, you know. So
yeah, and I was going to say, fun fact, I'm from Kentucky. So when I moved here and I went on job interviews and started working in the office, I was always overly dressed. I'm not kidding. Like, people at work are like, you are just always dressed on point. And I'm like, well, that's where I come from. You always have to, like, you know, come put together. And I had to slowly integrate casual Fridays into my wardrobe because all I had was dress clothes. So I just wanted to give you guys that fun little tidbit.
Well, I want to thank you both. I think I can't speak for we, sorry, everyone. I think I got a lot of this conversation just for myself personally. And I hope everyone else did as well, because I know, you know, when you hear branding, you think, like I had said before, just logos and color and all of that, but it really does go beyond that, especially as consumers are getting smarter and digging deeper into their feelings of who they want to work with. So thank you all for being here. In the chat, I dropped a link to the survey. If you'd like to keep in touch with myself, with Mary, Otisa, if you like some info on Kite Dart, please fill that out. If you don't want to ever talk to us again, that's okay. Please fill it out and tell us why you never want to see our faces again. I would be really curious.
Hope you don't not want to see our faces again. I want to see your faces again.
Well, you never know. It happens every once in a while, but I want to know why. So,
thank you, Najiba.
So yeah, thank you all for being here. You rock. I appreciate your time. And until next time. Oh, by the way, there is going to be, I just want to share this with you all. I'm super stoked and excited. I use that word a lot. About Denver Startup Week. Have you all ever heard of Denver Startup Week before? No, yeah, maybe so. Okay, well, I've actually gotten 2 sessions approved for Denver Startup Week. One, Otisa actually is going to be the MC for, and we're going to do a panel discussion, a general panel discussion about entrepreneurs of color and how they're making a difference in the world. And I would love to see you all there. I'm going to throw up the flyer really quick so you could see our lineup and you know, the registration link. It is through Denver Startup Week, so you have to register directly on their site. But let me go ahead and share my screen because I have the flyer right here. I just got to share my screen. Okay, I think you all should be able to see my screen, maybe. Oh, okay, it's loading. Cool. So Denver Startup Week, here's the flyer. Can you all see that? No?
No, we can't see it yet. I think it's still thinking.
Oh, probably because I'm on Zoom. So it's like, oh.
It's just slow. We can see a little bit now.
Okay, there we go.
It goes.
Yeah, so I actually have a lineup of 9 amazing entrepreneurs that are going to be presenting. 2 is, if you can tell, are children. Yes, they own their own business. So this is awesome. If you know any junior entrepreneurs, you know, folks out there who are young and want to make a difference in the world, I highly suggest inviting them to this session. It is after school. And so I would love to have some kids on there as well. And I'm sorry, my computer is running slow. There we go. So I have Otisa that's going to be joining us. I have Patrice. They are a D&I, diversity and inclusion coordinator consultant. We have Carlia, Jackson, and Sarita. They are the owners of Glow and Gather, and they incorporate their Indian heritage into a lot of the work they do. We have Leander. He is a conservationist consultant. And he's worked with some amazing organizations, both governmental and, public, nonprofit. We have Tangia. She is a podcaster. Her podcast is amazing. That's what she did. And then we have Javon Taylor. He's changing the game in the fashion industry. He does sustainable fashion. So I hope to have you all come and join. Here's the link at the bottom with how to sign up to go directly there. And until next time, I hope you all have a great evening. And if you don't mind staying on, Otisa and Mary, I'll just close out with you both. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks so much, everyone.